Good morning. Happy Friday the 13th. Please don't kill me. Anyways, I was in Walmart yesterday doing some shopping. And, there were a lot of empty shelves in there. And I had to go down the baking aisle. And all the gold medal self-rising flour was gone off the shelf. And I knew that it was there because there were a couple of busted open bags on the bottom shelf that nobody wanted. But the whole flour thing was gone. There's a clerk working there stocking shelves, and I look over at the guy and I said, "Hey, is there some new way of maybe wiping your butt with flour that I don't know about?" He kind of laughed, and I kind of played it off, but I wanted to reach out to my generation. You see, it's my generation that did that. A millennial wouldn't know what to do with a bag of flour. In one way, it's reassuring that if something was to happen, catastrophic, that people would be prepared for that type of thing. But like I said, I want to reassure my generation. I'm going to start off by, on November 22nd, 1963, okay, that was the day President Kennedy was assassinated. I was approximately 5 months old. I was born in June. He was assassinated November 22nd, 1963. My father had 3 children at the time. He was working at McDonnell Douglas and Missouri Research Labs in St. Louis, working on the Gemini Space Project in St. Louis Arch. Imagine, if you will, you've got 3 children in diapers at home, and the President of the United States is murdered. We were in the middle of that deal with the Cuban Missile Crisis, still sorting through that. We were at war overseas. The Vietnam War started in 1955 and ended in 1975. That is 20 years the United States was at war. And nobody knew what was going to happen. I mean, dear God, the President of the United States has been killed. Well, that wasn't just the end of that. And that was when I was 5 months old. That was what was going on in the world at that time. My parents were going through living hell with 3 kids and a dead president. You all remember the Y2K? Okay, this was a computer thing where all the world computers were going to shut down, banking systems. You wouldn't even be able to pump gas because they were computer controlled. Electric grids were going to go down worldwide because they were computer controlled. It was going to take us back to the Stone Age, and everybody panicked, and everybody just freaked out over it and stuff. And this happened about the same time. Desert Storm started in 1990. That was a decade prior to Y2K. And then we had the 2012 scare where the Mayans had predicted the end of the world was going to happen in December 2012. And some of my knucklehead kinfolks went out and got generators and stocked up on food and insisted we all be in the same house on that day should the end of the world come. I'm going to share something with you that my father shared with me. A survivalist had moved in next door to us in the country over in Locust Grove, and they had got my little brother in his panic mode and stuff about the end of the world coming, and this neighbor guy was setting booby traps and stocking up guns and weapons and doing your survivalist type crap. My little brother was terrified. This guy I think the guy's name was Tony, had my little brother scared to death. And my father sat me and my little brother down in the living room, and he said, "Boys, I want to tell you something." He said, "I was born in 1932 during the Great Depression, and people were starving in America. They were out of work, they were hungry, soup lines in every city. They just came out of World War I, and he said, son, the whole world was at war. And he said that ended. And then came depression, and the world was over. Then came World War II, and again, the whole world was at war. and it passed. Then came Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Operation Freedom. He didn't say that back then, but he was saying there's always going to be war. And there are going to be times in your life when it seems like the world is at war. You know, a young person said this to me not too long ago, just the other day. I was sitting there and I was talking about history. I have a fascination with Socrates and Plato and Aristotle. They were philosophers that shaped Western philosophy and certainly shaped the Constitution of the United States of America. And this young person looked at me and said, "That's ancient history. Nobody gives a shit about ancient history." And I looked at this young person. I kind of cracked a smile. I said, "You mind if I share something with you?" They said, "Whatever." I said, "You know, there was a time when they sold slaves and nobody thought anything about it. You know, it's no big deal. There were times when they murdered newborn children, sacrificed them, things. Nobody batted an eye about that. That's been going on a long time, thousands of years. Stuff. There were times when people went to the grocery store and there was no food on the shelves, no supplies there. Nobody batted an eye. You know, there were plagues and diseases that infested the world. Nobody batted an eye. Every day, people were murdered for their belief systems. Nobody batted an eye." And the kid says, "So what? That's ancient history." I said, "Dude, I was talking about today." He looked at me. He says, "What?" I said, "I was talking about today. Today, slaves are being sold on the open market. Nobody bats an eye. A child is murdered on his birthday. Nobody bats an eye. Disease worldwide. Nobody bats an eye." You know, I take responsibility in part. My generation fell asleep, and some of these career politicians that have been in office 30 and 40 years, well, that was my generation's fault. Each generation that comes along has to deal with the failings of the previous generations. It's always been that way. And to the young millennials that are coming into this world, one day as old people, old men and old women, middle-aged and stuff, you're going to have to deal with the mistakes of your own generation with a new generation. And they'll make their own mistakes. But to you old farts like me, of my generation, try to remember we survived the death of our president. We survived Vietnam. We survived all the wars. We survived all the diseases. We have survived everything that they've thrown at us. So don't get in a panic. You know, here's some food for thought. In 1963, the year of my birth, my mother had 3 children in cloth diapers. They didn't have disposable diapers back then. If you're that concerned about wiping your butt, you know, Walmart has a sale of a 12-pack of men's white tube socks. You know, you go buy one of them, get you a 5-gallon bucket of water and some laundry soap, and just wash your socks and wipe your butt. My mother did it. I'm going to have to edit that. Anyways, y'all have a happy Friday the 13th. And if worse comes to worse, get some cloth diapers. I kind of want one of them NASA diapers, you know, the kind you can crap in for a week and not have to worry about anything. Hell, I'm old, so wearing a diaper ain't going to look odd. Anyways, I love you guys. Enjoy the video.